decks and snap you right behind them. But speaking of decks, you have a full setup in front of you. This type of rig you would find on a festival stage or nightclubs around the world, and I don't want you to be intimidated. I know there's a ton of knobs and faders and buttons. What does it all do? Don't worry, I'll show you how it all works. But just to point this out, you have two decks. Here's one deck, here's your second deck, and here's the mixer in the middle. My job here at Tribe is to help you get started and to pick up some momentum. So we've created some lessons that will walk you through some of the basics. I'll explain a concept, then I'll do it, and then you'll do it. And by the time we're done, you will know enough of the basics to be able to get started and start having fun inside of Tribe. Now, if for some reason you want to skip the tutorials right now, no worries. You can always access them later inside of free play, inside of the main menu. But I hope that you'll come along with us right now. All right, it's time for me to jump behind the decks with you. So I know that some of us might be newer to VR. So if I hold my palms up to the sky, we'll see this blue sphere. This is the contact point. So as I hover over a fader or a knob or a button, it will light up blue. And that means it's ready to be controlled. In fact, I actually have a pink bar right in front of me if you look down, and I can raise or lower the height of the table. Pretty cool feature. So I'm going to use my trigger finger to be able to grab either a fader or a knob or a button, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Here we go. I'm going to hover over the volume fader. I'm going to grab it by holding the trigger in, and now I can move my arm, my wrist with it, and it's like I'm controlling an actual fader. Same thing with the knob. I can hover over the low, and I'm just twisting my wrist as I'm holding it. Just like I would a regular knob. If I hit a button, same thing. Great. In fact, actually, even with the jog wheel, I can rewind it. Pretty cool, right? All right, let me get out of the way so that you can try it out. And when you are ready to move on to the next lesson, just go ahead and click Next Lesson.
さあ。ちょっと待って。ボリュームを、いいかな。さあ、やってみます。ドライブ XR DJ in VR。まだね、買ったばっかりなんですけどね、このソフト。使い方全然わかってないんですが、もうね、このチュートリアルをちょっと見た限り、神ゲームかどうかよくわかんないけど、すごい。ちょっとね、最初からまたやってみよう。もうね、こういう風にね、これなんで使えるんですけど、ちょっともう一回最初から聞こう。
Hello DJ, my name is DJ Happa, also known as the DJ
初心者向けにこ
Welcome
う、
to Tribe, where you're among
やり方を
fellow
ね、
music
教
lovers
えてく
who
れる
want to
みたい
share
な。
our love and passion for music with the
残念な
rest
が
of
ら
the
英語し
world.
かないですね。
I'm here to
字
help you
幕も
get
出ないん
started.
で、
So let's get going.
ちょっとなんて言ってるか
First
よく
off,
聞かない
you
と。
should be in front of the decks. Now, for some reason,
まあ、
the decks are
わかりま
not
せんけどね。
in front of you. Go ahead and hit the Y button on your left-hand controller. That Y button will reset the decks and snap you right behind them. But speaking of decks, you have a full setup in front of you. This type of rig you would find on a festival stage or nightclubs around the world. And I don't want you to be intimidated. I know there's a ton of knobs and faders and buttons. What does it all do? Don't worry, I'll show you how it all works. But just to point this out, you have two decks. Here's one deck, here's your second deck, and here's the mixer in the middle.
はい。
My job here at Tribe is to help you get
デッキ1
started
と2
and to
と
pick up some
ミキサーがある
momentum.
よ。
So, we've
わ
created
かる
some
わかる。
lessons that will walk you through some of the basics. I'll explain a concept, then I'll do it, and then you'll do it. And by the time we're done, you will know enough of the basics to be able to get started and start having fun inside of Tribe.
はあはあはあ。
Now, if for some reason you want to skip the tutorials
やっ
right
てみ
now,
せるからや
no
ってみろっ
worries.
て言ったん
You
で
can
しょ。
always access them later inside of free play, inside of the main menu. But I hope that you'll come along with us right now. All right, it's time for me to jump behind the decks with you.
そっち行くから、ちょっとやってみろと。
So I know that
見て
some
み
of
ろと。
us might be newer to VR. So if I hold my palms up to the sky, we'll see this blue sphere. This is the contact point. So as I hover over a fader or a knob or a button, it will light up blue. And that means it's ready to be controlled. In fact, I actually have a pink bar right in front of me. If you look
これね、
down, and I can
これサイズ
raise or
サイズじゃな
lower
い
the
や。
height
高
of
さ
the
ね。
table. Pretty cool feature.
変えられるのすげ
So
えな。
I'm going to use my trigger finger to be able to grab either a fader or a
ハン
knob
ド。
or a button, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Here we go.
はいはいはい。
I'm going to hover over the volume fader. I'm going to grab it by holding the trigger
フェー
in.
ダー。
And now I can move my arm, my wrist with it. And it's like I'm controlling an actual fader. Same thing with a knob. I can hover over the low. And I'm just twisting my wrist as I'm holding it.
なるほどね。
Just like I would a regular knob. If I hit a button, same thing. Great. In fact, actually, even with the jog wheel, I can rewind it.
あ、止めてるときはなるんだ。そういうふうに。
Pretty cool, right? All right, let me get out of the way so that you can try it out. And when you are ready to move on to the next lesson, just go ahead and click next lesson.
やっていい？はいはいはい。これ、流しながら回らないんだよね。で、これね、フェーダーね。はい。
Biggie said he had the hat to match. We called them lumberjacks. You know, Biggie said, 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 Biggie said, Biggie said,
止めるとこれが出てる。スクラッチ。OK。次行って。あれ？アクティ。これ？
So I know that some of us might be newer to VR. So if I hold my palms up to the sky, we'll see this blue sphere. This is the contact point. So as I hover over a fader or a knob or a button, it will light up blue.
今やったやつだよ。
And that
こ
means
れ。
it's ready to be controlled. In fact, I actually have a pink bar
そう
right
ね。
in front of me. If you look
じゃあ
down,
次行っていいんだ。
and I can
Loading
raise
music.
or let's talk about loading songs. So we need some music to be able to DJ with. So let me show you where we can get our music. Go ahead and hit B on the right-hand controller. That'll bring up our menu. The second icon in is music. Let's click on that. And here's where we're going to find our sample songs. So let's go ahead and load
これね、さっ
one
き
song
試
onto
したけ
one
ど、
deck.
パ
And
ソ
then
コンの
let's
中のや
load
つね、
another
読み
song
込める。
onto our other deck. So now, just to ensure that the songs have come in properly, if I look
曲ね、メニュ
over
ー開いて入
at
れ
the
るのと
top
か
of
ちょ
the
っと
CDJ, there is a screen. Inside
手
of
間
that
取るよ
screen,
ね。
we'll see a waveform that's been built. We'll see the title of the song and the BPM. And I can see I've got that on both decks, which means awesome. We're good to go. So now it's your turn. All I'm going to have you do is just load 2 songs, 1 on each deck. And then when you're ready, go ahead and click next lesson. Go for it.
曲選べって。これ1入れて、じゃあこれを2に入れよう。鳴らしてみようか。こっちもテンポ合ってない。合ってる。合ってないね。合わないね、これね。こっちが早いもんね。こっちか、こうか。これで一発で合うんじゃないの？これつけて、合ってないし。ちょっとやり方教えてよ。次合わせてくれるか。教えてくれるか。
All right, let's talk about play and pause. So there are tons of knobs and buttons on this rig, but I just want to draw your attention to the bottom left-hand corner of the player, of each player, right there. That is our
左下にあ
play
るよ。
pause button. So, if I go ahead and hit play, track plays,
うん。
hit it again, and the track pauses. Simple enough. Now it's your turn. Give that a shot. And when you're ready, go ahead and click next to move on to the next lesson.
ただ、さっきやったやつでしょ。プレイ。OK。これ、125になってる。BPM が。これ、適当なタイミングで押しても。ずれてるね。ずれてる。これつけた。いや、合ってないし。これじゃないの。シンク。おい。合ってる。合ってるよ。もう、教えてもらわなくても、先言っちゃったよ。さすが。わかるよ、俺。ちょっとはわかるんだから。まあでも次行こうか。
Now,
Q.
the Q button is a little trickier. In fact, this is what I would call a bookmark. So it's like a temporary bookmark. And right now, it's set to the very beginning of the track. And the way that I know that is if you hover over, you'll be able to see there's a little orange triangle right at the very beginning. That is our temporary Q. And you can tell that this is orange and that triangle is orange. So they correspond. So watch what happens when I hit the Q. I'm holding the trigger down and it's playing. As soon as I let my hand off the trigger, it goes back to the very beginning, back to that orange part. So,
わかんない。
now, this is a way that I can preview the song before playing it. And in fact, this is great as you're listening to a song and auditioning it before bringing it into the mix. So, as I do this, and I go back to the top, I'm actually saving myself a lot of time. The alternative would be to hit play, then hit pause, then rewind the song back to the top. By using Q, I'm saving a lot of time and a lot of effort by just using Q and holding it down. So I want you to try something. It's going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lift your hand off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Lift your hand off. So I'm just letting this play for 4 beats.
どういう意味あるのそれ。話す。
Great. Now it's your turn. Give this a shot, and when you're ready to move on, go ahead and click next to move on to the next lesson.
やれって。どういう意味どういう意味やん、俺。どういうことここら辺わかんなかった。イン、Q。でもそれは、この途中で、これやれば、そこに Q が、途中でね、Q が作られたから、ループイン、ループインと同じになってる。やべ、もうついていけない。もうすでについていけない。これ途中で、ループ、イン、アウトってやると、これね。もう先行っちゃったでしょ、これまた俺。先のことやったでしょ、これ。ループ。先で教えてもらえるんじゃないの？これ長く押したんでよくわかんなかったんだけど。この、1、2、3、4。クリアはエグジット。ちょっと待て。一番最初に、もう戻れない。タッチパネルじゃない。これか。この、1、2、3、4っていうのが意味があんねんな。2、3、4って言ってたよ。先行くか。先行こう。9。一通り聞こう。
Now, I can use Q and play together, and I want to show you how we do this. This is a very common gesture that DJs will use on physical hardware. You'll see this happen a lot now that I point this out. When you watch DJs play off of CDJs like this, you'll see how people are using the Q and the play button together. So let's start by holding this down. And now, as I'm holding it, with my other hand, I can go ahead and click play. And as I do, I can let my hand off of both of those, and it's going to continue to play. So, and if I want to go back to the beginning, I'm not going to hit pause. I'm going to hit Q. And it goes right back to that orange triangle, which was set up to the very beginning. So again, I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to hit Q. And then with my other hand, I'm going to hit play. Let both hands off, and now it's playing. Now, if I want to get back to the very beginning, do I hit play or do I hit Q? I hit Q. And gets back to the very beginning. And now, the reason why it goes back to the very beginning is because, again, that's where the Q is set up to that triangle. Later on, we'll show you how we can actually move the Q and cue up to a different part within the song. We'll show you that next. But first, I want you to give this a shot. So go ahead and try that. And when you're ready to move on, go ahead and click next to move on to the next lesson.
もうついていけない。これ、押した状態でこれやった？そういうことじゃない？ん？これわかんない。ちょっとこれは、次行こう。次行こう。ムービング、ちょっと Q に関してが難しいな。
You are doing so awesome. I just want you to know that. We're
何
going to
をし
keep
たんだ？
going, and I'm going to show you how we can move the cue. So let's say we had the
で
cue at
字
the
幕
very
出して
beginning, which
く
we
れれば
have right
な。
now. But let's say we didn't want it there. Let's say we wanted it somewhere else in the track. Well, the way to move it would be this. I'm going to go ahead and start playing. And when I pause it, let's say let's pause it right here.
ポーズ。
Now you'll notice that the cue is blinking. You see how that yellow light is blinking? That means it's ready to record my new cue.
Q
So I'm going to go ahead and hit
Q ずらす。
Q, and you'll see what happens is that jumped over. So if I look over the deck, we'll see that that orange triangle is no longer at the very beginning. It is now where I just set it to be. So now when I hit this, it's taking it from that point. Great. So what I want you to do is you can choose anywhere in the song you want, but I want you to move the temporary cue. And then I want you to move it back. So I want you to move it somewhere to your liking. And then for good measure and for good practice, I want you to move it back to the very beginning. Okay? Great. And once you've done that, I want you to go ahead and click next so we can move on to the next lesson.
次行こう。Q に関してはちょっと全部わざわざ3つもパートがあったけど、全部同じことしかしてないよ
Now I
うな。
want to show you how we can use the jog wheel
Rewind.
to rewind or fast
戻
forward
る？
our track. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play first. You'll notice that this is spinning, and I can rewind this back by moving in a counterclockwise manner, or I
今
can
止めないで回し
fast
たね。
forward by using a clockwise motion. And let's say that's where I wanted my
まあ止めて
cue.
る
So
ときも
going
もちろ
back
んね。
to what we just did, I can go ahead and hit a
Q
cue there, and now have
光っ
that
て
there.
る。Q
But the
光って
main
る。
point of this lesson is I
光ってるね。
want you to be comfortable moving the jog wheel. And while we are not quite scratching yet, you can see that this demonstrates a lot of control, and you can really use the jog wheel to be able to get in there to the exact spot that you want. I also think it's pretty trippy to be able to do this in virtual reality like this. So I want you to give that a shot. I want you just to be able to grab the jog wheel, fast forward it, rewind it, just get used to being able to grab the jog wheel and use it, and use your wrist to be able to do that. Once you're ready to move on, go ahead and click next to move on to the next lesson.
まあ、合わせるよねっていう。そんで、好きなとこで Q 作るとか。お、 ちゃんとできる途中で。まあいいや。Needle search.
Now, let's talk about something called needle search. This is a way
Needle
that we
search.
can use our finger to move forward and backwards throughout the song to be able to find a point that we want to be able to jump to. So if I go ahead and hover over the player right between the jog wheel and the screen, you'll see this bar right here. This is our needle search.
あ、なんかこ
So if
こ
I go ahead and press that,
触れる。
I can hold it and then move
めっちゃ便
this
利。
white line, which is basically our playhead. I can
あそ
move
こで一
that
気に
to
飛べるん
wherever
だ。
I want. So let's say I move it here, and
すご
then
くない？
I can actually use this in combination
本物
with the jog
本
wheel
物こういうのあ
itself
んの？
to get a lot tighter to the
タッ
point
チセ
that
ン
I
サー？
want. And let's say, okay, that's where I want my new cue point to be. Now, another great way to use the needle search is to get back to the very beginning quickly. So instead of having to rewind this all the way back to the beginning by hand, I can use the needle search and grab it and bring it all the way back to the beginning. And then I can reset my cue point to be there as well.
Needle search で
Great. So now what I want you to do is
ガ
I
サッ
want
と
you
動
to
か
try
し
it
て
and I want you to move the needle
細かい
search
ところ
to
は回せってことでしょ
somewhere in the middle of the track. And then I want you to try to set a cue there. And then I want you to bring it back to the very beginning. And then I want you to set a cue there as well. So this is all, as you can see, it's all culminating into what we're putting together. And actually what we're going to do very shortly here is we're going to start to mix two songs together. So, and everything that we're learning right now is moving towards that. So come on in here, give that a shot. And when you're ready to move on, go ahead and click next to move on to the next lesson.
はいはい。これで一気に動かして、細かく合わせて9打てるよっていうことね。それでいいよね。次行こ
Okay, let's talk about the volume. So right here in the mixer section, I know we've been spending a lot of time looking at the players themselves, but let's talk about the mixer section here. There is a volume control for each one of my players, and you can see I've got a volume fader here, and this is controlling this deck, and I've got a volume fader here, and this is controlling this deck. Now, you're also noticing that I'm using both of my hands. But we're not going to use both of our hands at the same time when we're mixing these songs together. So I just want you to be able to grab this volume fader and be able to move it up and down. You can slowly bring it up and down, or we can sort of quickly bring this up and down. Let me show you what this sounds like if you've got the song playing. So slow fade out, slow fade up, or quick fade down. Noticing that I can do this rhythmically as well, right? So volume fader, I want you to go ahead and try and grab it and try it slow and then also try it fast. And when you're ready to move on, go ahead and click next and we'll move on to our next lesson.
ちょっとメリハリ出せと。ゆっくりとかね。いいでしょう。次行こう。X フェーダー。
Let's talk about the crossfader. So this is a special type of fader. It's at the very bottom of the mixer. It allows me to go between two songs, but even more importantly, it allows me to mix two songs together at the same time so that we can hear both songs playing at the same time. Just like the channel faders, I go ahead and grab that by holding down my trigger, and now I can move from left to right. So if I'm all the way over here on A, I'm just hearing this song. If I'm all the way over here, I'm only hearing this song. And if I'm anywhere in the middle, I'm going to be hearing both. So let me show you how this works. Go ahead and grab that. All the way over here, we're not hearing anything. Right? And if I'm in the middle, I'm going to hear both. Why don't you go ahead and give that a shot. And when you are ready to move on, go ahead and click next to move on to the next lesson.
これはね、こちらさ、ね、 あ、こういうことね。EQ。
Let's talk about EQ. EQ stands for equalizer, and that represents these three knobs right here. I've got a high, a mid, and a low. These are knobs that will control the dynamic of the sound and will change the way that the song sounds. So low is for our lower frequencies, our middle frequencies, and then our higher frequencies are the EQ high. I'm just going to show you. So I'm going to play a song, take out the low. All of the bass sounds, all of the low end came out of it. Bring it back to the middle. And it's nice to do this on beat. Take out the mid. Oops, I actually brought out the high instead. Let me grab the mid. When I take out the mid, you'll still hear the low and you'll still hear the high, but it sounds hollow. The mid back. And now let's do the high. All the treble sounds have been taken out. So I've just got mid and low end.
We call them lumberjacks. You know, Biggie said he had the hat to match. We call them lumberjacks. You know.
Now, where this is really important is when we're trying to mix two songs together. I've got low, mid, and high of this one, and I've got low, mid, and high of this one. So using the EQ can really smooth out the mix, and it's definitely something to try out. So I want to let you try that. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit next, and we're going to move on to putting it all together. Super excited. I hope you are too.
Biggie said he had the hat to match.
なるほど。いいね。楽しくなってくるね。
Can I give you a bonus? I just want to give you one more thing. There's so much more to this too. This is just about getting started, but I do want to give you one more thing because it corresponds to the EQ as well, but it's one knob that will allow us to control multiple frequencies at the same time, and that is the filter. Now, there are multiple steps to the filter, and in fact, the filter is a full range filter here, so it goes from high to low. And I want to show you what I'm talking about. So if we lean over, you'll see this color knob that's underneath where the low is. And if I go to the left, this is going to create a low pass filter. If I go to the right, this will create a high pass filter, which basically means go to the left, this is letting the lows pass through. If I go to the right, it's letting the highs pass through as a high pass filter. But in order to actually have this knob do anything, I have to turn it on. And here it is right here. So you can see this bar that goes across. These are our color effects. And here it is right here, filter. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. When I turn it on, it lights up. So now when I move this knob, it's going to be affected. So check it out.
Oh,
that's cool, yeah? High pass filter. Back to the middle. And it turns the filter off. When I get back to the middle, it stops the filter. I come here, this is low pass filter, high pass filter. Cool, right? Now, another way that I can turn off the filter is by using my other hand to turn off that button. So check it out. Filter going, low pass, and wait, I didn't hit that right. Here we go. And there we go. Sorry, I got a little carried away. I'm having too much fun over here. I almost didn't let you get a chance to try this out. So now I want you to go ahead and try that out with the filter. High pass, low pass, get used to being able to turn it on, turn it off. And this is the last step before we start mixing these songs together. So go ahead, get on in there, try the filter out, and when you're ready, go ahead and hit next. Click next to move on to that next lesson where we put it all together.
これをフィルターした上でこれをしないと特に何も意味ないですね。このサウンドカラー FX もグレーになってるからここがそれのやつだってことね。ダブエコー。はいはいはい。 これなんだ、ノイズ。ローにノイズかかる。高音にかかる。クラッシュ。これね。上がった。上がってきたよ。よし、次だ。
Okay, now is the time. We're going to put it all together. And before we do, I just want to point out one other thing. We have a sync button here. Now, later on, you may want to try and put yourself up to the challenge of learning how to manually beat match. That's how I started learning how to DJ. And a lot of people have learned how to manually beat match, and it's a great thing to learn as a DJ. However, today, for this mix, we are going to use the sync button here. So we're going to sync these songs together, and what this will do is this will sync the two tracks together so that they are the same BPM and they are lined up together.
BPM 合わせるのさっき。
Let's go ahead and start with this song. We're going to start on the left side, and we're going to mix to the right side, and we're going to use our crossfader to be able to do that. We will use our volume faders a little bit. We'll use the EQ, the filter a bit. We're going to put it all together. So let's go ahead and turn on the filter just to have it ready to go. And now, let me go ahead and bring in the song. Remember that technique? Good. Now make sure you're moving to it too. Nice. Get a little filter.
Nice.
Good. All right. I'm just going to mess around a little bit and then I'm going to have you go. So I'm just demonstrating some of the things as it all comes together. Let's start with the crossfade over here. Here we go. They're both playing at the same time. Take this low out.
Oh, なるほど。そこを絞ってっていうやり方。
Nice. There we go. So now we're on to this song. You technically could load another song and then just kind of keep this going. That's the whole idea. The whole idea here is that we're mixing from one song to the next, and then we bring up the third song on this side. And then we mix that song in, and then we keep going. Pretty fun, right? All right, so let me now let you try this. I want you to go ahead and try this, and let me know how much fun you're having after this. Make sure to reach out. But I've given you all of the tools so far for you to be able to put this all together. I want you to put this all together and see how it feels for you. When you are ready to move on, I have one more thing that I want to show you before I completely set you off on your own, and that is the virtual headphones. So go ahead and try this out first, and then go ahead and click next, and we'll move on to our last and final lesson.
とりあえずいろいろやろうってことね。合うね。やっぱりこれがついてるから。どこで止めてやっても合う。ぴったり。じゃあ、さっきの真似て。いや、これ、こうだったしね。これが、下げてるからこれね。これは2つはつかないんだ。 なるほどね。面白い面白い。最後のチュートリアルだな。よいしょ。
That was so
あ、
much
じゃあヘッ
fun.
ド
I
フォ
don't
ン。
know about you, but I just
なん
get
か、
swept
なん
into
だろう。
DJing
ん
and the time just
あ、
seems to
じゃあヘッド
disappear.
フォン。
But our time has come. I want to show you one more thing before we get out of here, which is something called the virtual headphones. So when I'm DJing on a rig in the real world, I've got music that's playing out through the speakers and I've got my headphones on. Now what the headphones allow me to do is to be one step ahead and to be able to hear the
実
song
際
that
そう
I'm
だよね。ヘ
bringing
ッド
in
フォン、
next.
次の曲、
And we have the ability to do
ヘ
that
ッドフォン
inside
で
of
聞かな
Tribe.
いと
We
ね。
have this thing called virtual headphones. So even if you're wearing headphones right now, by turning on the virtual headphones, you'll be able to hear before the
なん
audience
かで
hears
きるっ
what
てこ
you're
と？
actually hearing. So it'll allow you to still stay that one step ahead. So in order to activate it, all you need to do is put your hand up to your ear and go ahead and then hit the trigger. And watch what happens down here in the bottom left-hand
もし
corner
や、
of the mixer. Light comes on.
手
That
を
lets
掲
us
げるって
know
こと？
that our virtual headphones are on and activated and ready to go. Now, we'll get
手
deeper
を耳
into
に掲
how
げる
to
と、
actually use the headphones
自動的
more and
に、
how to manually beat match and how to prepare sets and all that kind of good stuff at a later time. But I
マジ
want to
か。
let you try that,
なんかつい
number
てるもん
one.
ね。
And I also want
マ
to
ークが。
thank you for going through this process with me. I had a ton of fun doing it. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you had fun as well. And now it's my turn to set you off into the world and let you do your own thing and have free play and start to figure some things out on your own and start to play some music together and share it with the rest of the world that's out there. So I want to let you go, but I also want to remind you that at any point in time, you can come back, you can rewatch these lessons. You can also come back and visit me because I've got more things coming. So you can find us inside of the free play, inside of the main menu. You'll be able to come on back here and hang out with yours truly.
もうね、
My name is DJ Hoppa. They call me
レ
the
ッスン
DJ
全部やっ
coach. I'm
たから、
excited to be your coach. I'll see you out
あ
there.
とは好きなようにやれって言ったんだと思う。イヤホン。どういうことなんだろう。そんなわけある？ちょっと待って。ちょっと待って。ヘッドフォン、掲げても何かないかな、何も。ちょっとわかんないな。これ？ヘッドフォン。あ、やべえ、わかんねえな、やっぱ今の。これ、ちょっと待って。あ、これこうやって、こっち流して、いや、わからない。こっちの曲聴く方法はないな。わかんない。ちょっとこの説明わかんなかったな。うん。すまん。ちょっと後でよくまた聞いてみる。まあ、そんな感じで、コングラチュレーション。全部のチュートリアル終わりましたんで、レッスンが終わったんで、もうフリープレイで遊んでくださいってことね。ちょっとじゃあ曲を適当に流すか。これつけて、まだね、ちょっとここら辺とか何も聞いてないんだよね。これも FX だよね。 全体にかけるってことか。タイム。ビートエフェクスタイム。マスター。全体にかけるか、1番にかけるかどうかみたいな。トランス。はい。わかった。すごいね。いや、これすげえよ。これほんとすごいのが、さっきちょっと一人でちょっといじったとき、なんか配信用の画面に切り替えられるんだよ。今どうなってるかな。これやると、配信用の画面にフロント、トップダウン、こういう風にパフォーマンスを見せたりもできるし、こっち向きにしたりもできるし、で、あとは自撮り棒もあるんだよね。自撮り棒。ちょっとここ置いてこう。すげえよ。これすげえよ、このゲーム。ゲームシミュレーション。あとは、どこだっけな。このオプションで、そう。パイオニア DJ って書いてあった。どういうこと？パイオニア DJ となんか提携して、これがこのソフト標準のやつで、これ切り替えると、ガチの本物のパイオニア DJ になった。これはやばいやつでしょ。これ高級なやつでしょ。これでじゃあちょっと。そうするとちょっとあれか。使い勝手変わっちゃったかな。そうだね。シンクロさせるボタンどこ行ったかわかんなかった。ちょっと待ってよ。これだ。あったら後で。そう、これね、機材が、なんか、これか、4デック、デッキ。これらは、金出して買ってくださいって言うんだけど、これとこれは無料で入ってんだもんな。やばいってこれ。あとは、なんか、金色のやつにするとかね。ちょっと洒落たやつに切り替えたりとか。でもパイオニア用じゃないんだ。変わらない。変わらないもんね。ノーマルのやつは変えられるんだ。すげえ。ちょっとサイズがね、リアルサイズじゃないけど、多分、これくらいのサイズじゃないと、この VR の、このつまみで、つまめないっていうね、コントローラーで、この、バーチャルハンドで。これはね、すごいソフトですよ、これは。やばいやつですよ。あとは、なんかよくわかんないけど、これ怖いな。人のとこ入れるんですよね。ルームを作って、やってる人のところに、入ってみる？いきなり入ってみるこの人のとこ。DJ アンバー D。絶対外国人だからね。押します。なんか適当なに逃げようなんか言われたら。入った。やばい。押した。押したぞ。どうなんの？ジョイン。配信中なのに入ってすいません。おう。ハロー。はい。こっちは、見るだけ。
You're my first visitor.
I'm Japanese. Nice to meet you. Yeah. なるほど。こっちは、見るんだ。一緒にやるんじゃないんだ。
Woo!
そういう遊びができるのね。あれ、もしかして、聞こえない？聞こえてないね。なんか、あんのかな？設定。なんか、かわいそうなことになってる。聞こえた聞こえた。え？聞いてる？これ。ボリューム。ボリューム。オッケーオッケーオッケー。オッケーオッケーオッケー。普通に、あれか。自分でやってるときは聞こえるんかな？ボリューム下げて。やっと聞こえた。これサボってたもんね、そこ。わかってるね。いいね。イエー。ガチ勢。これ、あれだ。パイオニアのやつ？パイオニアでやってるの？パイオニアでやってるんだ。そうだ。ガチ勢ですね。これやばいかも、このゲーム。やばい、面白いかも。すごいよ、これ。これ熱いだろう。俺思いっきり日本語でしゃべる。うまい。ナイス。普通に日本語で喋っちゃってるけど。大丈夫なのかな？さっきうまかったな、なんか。手つきがもう慣れてる感あるよね。やってる人だろうね、これね。本物。俺ちょっかい出せんのかな、これ。さりげなくこう、ちょっかい出せるの。ちょっかい出せる。ちょっかい出せんだ、俺。やばい。あんまりやるとちょっとね、すげえ怒られたりして。これ、神ゲーじゃねこれ。4人まで部屋入れるみたいなのかな、なんか、メニュー出して。すごい。ちょっと、よくわかんないですけど、フレンド、インバイトしとこう。フレンド登録、お願いしときました。ちょっと霧のいいところで、リーフルームして抜けよう。今日はちょっとこれぐらいでしょ。イエー。 曲うまいこと繋がれると、抜けるタイミングがなくなっちゃうんだろうね。あんまり繋ぐの上手い人だったりするとね。ちょっとここら辺で抜けていいですかみたいな。言い出せないよね。すげえな。うん。おう。Yeah. なんか言われたけどやった。出川みたいな。Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Okay, yes, yes. ゲットゲット。これは。ん
This is one of my songs. You like it? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. ちょっと申し訳ないけど、抜けて、OK。OK, see you. OK. Thank you. 怖いな、でも。焦るな。そんなゲームでしたっていうことで、まあそんなとこかな、紹介として。ということで、これがね、ドライブ XR DJ in VR でした。今日はこの辺で。ちょっともっと勉強して、ちゃんと、本当俺も人呼んだりしてみたいの。ほんで配信すればいいんだね。まあちょっとまだまだね、やり方、覚えなきゃいけないことばっかりですけど。そんなわけでね。じゃあこれを、こういう状態にして、では、今日はこの辺で切ります。終了。配信終了。